Our lead story tonight. Well, once again, we are seeing a repeat of what seems to be happening more and more in every state. Today, the Punjab police arrived at a Delhi home of a BJP worker, Tajinder Bagga, who had tweeted against Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. They dragged him out of his house and arrested him. They took him to driving him towards Punjab, but that's when things became dramatic because two other police forces intercepted the Punjab police convoy. The Haryana police stopped the Punjab police convoy. They were there for 2 or 3 hours and then Delhi police rescued Bagga. But the larger question, when this happened with independent Gujarat MLA Mevani, when he was picked up from Gujarat and taken to Assam by the Assam police force, there was not the same outrage, and it was a court which actually let him off, saying, are we becoming a police state? So why this larger trend of police forces, depending on which party is ruling the government, actually going and picking up people across the country from completely different states over tweets?
The starting of one of the most dramatic showdowns between separate police forces. At the heart was this man, Tajinder Bagga, a BJP youth leader. What followed was a day-long cat and mouse game, a political battle between the AAP and BJP, but played out by the police forces controlled by each one's government. The Punjab police arrested Bagga this morning for provocative statements promoting religious enmity and criminal intimidation after tweets against AAP's boss Arvind Kejriwal.
आप ही बताइए, जब मेरे को पता नहीं कि उठा के ले जाने वाला कौन है, कहां से आया है, कोई उनके पास गिरफ्तारी वारंट नहीं है, तो हम इसको किस श्रेणी में रखेंगे? तजिंदर ने कोई ऐसा ट्वीट नहीं किया जिससे सांप्रदायिकता फैले.
But to get back to AAP-governed Punjab, they had to get past the Delhi and Haryana police, both controlled by BJP government. At Kurukshetra, the Haryana police surrounded the Punjab police vehicle carrying Mr. Bagga and escorted them off highway to a police station in Kurukshetra. The Punjab cops were detained. A motorcade of Delhi cops led by a senior officer rushed there and freed Bagga from the Punjab police.
दिल्ली पुलिस ने गैर कानूनी तरीके से तजिंदर बग्गा को यहां से किडनैप किया. अरविंद केजरीवाल, जो कि कुछ दिन पहले ही अपने वीडियो के अंदर एक बात कह रहे हैं कि मुझे पुलिस मिल लेने दो, पुलिस एक बार मेरे हाथ में आ जाए तो इन लोगों को, 2-4 लोगों को जेल में बंद करूंगा तो इनका दिमाग ठीक हो जाएगा. आप उससे कल्पना करें कि पुलिस का इस्तेमाल और दुरुपयोग को किस कदर कर रहा होगा.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी एक गुंडों की पार्टी है. भारतीय जनता पार्टी लफंगों की पार्टी है. दंगे भड़काने वाले नेता हैं श्री तेजिंदर बग्गा.
You can see that we are a little bit behind the vehicle. You can see the Scorpio of Delhi police where they are escorting Tajinder Pal Singh Bagga to Delhi, and we are very close to Delhi border. I think in maximum in 15 minutes Delhi police will touch Delhi and Bagga will enter Delhi, and after that Bagga will be safe.
After Delhi police took Bagga's custody, Punjab government reached the High Court calling the intervention by Haryana police illegal. However, the High Court turned down Punjab government's request to keep BJP leader Tajinder Pal Singh Bagga in Haryana. Bagga's case drew a parallel with Gujarat MLA Jignesh Mevani. Mevani was arrested in Gujarat by Assam police within hours of an FIR being filed.
While Tajinder Pal Singh Bagga was secured by Delhi police within a few hours, Jignesh Mevani had to spend several days in jail, and the big difference in Mevani's case was BJP in power in both the states. However, the common concern that still remains is the use of police to settle political scores, especially if it's over freedom of speech. With Ratandeep in Assam and Sourav Shukla in Kurukshetra, Akshay Dongre for NDTV.
An extremely worrying trend there happening in state after state. Meanwhile, the Home Minister Amit Shah in West Bengal, he's currently having dinner at, cricket star and BCCI chief Sourav Ganguly's house. But before that, today on his day of the visit, all celebrations are called off because a BJP youth worker was found hanging. Amit Shah visited the family of the young man who died and said that this was murder. This is, the Trinamool says, wait for the post-mortem. But this is clearly another political flashpoint between the BJP, the centre and Mamata Banerjee.
The death by hanging of Arjun Chaurasia a member of the BJP's youth wing in Kolkata, hours before Home Minister Amit Shah visited the city, the latest flashpoint between the BJP and the ruling TMC in Bengal. Chaurasia was to lead a bike rally later today to celebrate Amit Shah's visit. The Home Minister, after visiting Chaurasia's family right after landing in Kolkata, alleged this was a political murder by the ruling Trinamool Congress.
तृणमूल सरकार के 1 साल हुआ है, उसके दूसरे ही दिन बंगाल में राजनीतिक हिंसा, राजनीतिक हत्या का परंपरा फिर से शुरू किया है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता अदालत के सामने गए हैं कि इसका वीडियोग्राफी के साथ पैनल पोस्टमार्टम हो और इसकी जांच सीबीआई को सौंपनी चाहिए।
Amit Shah, the Union Home Minister, is at the residence of the BJP worker who was found dead and hanging in Kolkata earlier today. The worker's body has just been taken out, and that has happened after a lot of ruckus and a lot of protests by the BJP workers. So the situation here is that on one side you have the BJP that is protesting, and on the other side you have the Trinamool Congress that is opposing what the BJP is doing and saying that this is all politics, and at the end of the day, how can you judge or call anything a murder or suicide before a post-mortem has happened? All day at the spot where the BJP worker was found hanging, BJP and TMC workers faced one another, shouting slogans and even clashing on and off. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's party denied the BJP's murder charge, calling the allegations baseless.
When the body is not postmortem, how can you judge that that is murder or suicide? All are outsiders. They have no right to agitate here. They have no right to agitate here. They are trying to political gain. That is why they have come here. All outsiders. And they are calling Amit Shah. So I ask them, call Narendra Modi.
This was Mr. Shah's first visit to Bengal since the BJP lost the state election last year. Since the defeat, the BJP has faced defections and losses in Assembly and Lok Sabha by-polls, a situation the Home Minister sought to address in his two-day Bengal visit. In Kolkata with camera person G.D. Shankar, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
A death of a young man there which needs to be investigated. Moving on to the other big headline, well, that's really the global markets crash which has impacted Indian markets severely today.
After a green session following interest rate hikes across economies, Indian and global markets tanked sharply today. Indian markets lost over 1.5%. The Sensex lost 866 points to settle at 54,835, while Nifty closed down by 271 points to end at 16,411. Globally, US markets witnessed their worst losses since the year 2020 and tanked over 3%. Asian markets too lost over 2% of their value. But global markets gained majorly in the last session, that was right after the interest rate hike announcements. So what really spooked investors now? What changed? Investors now fear a further spike in global inflation, interest rates and an economic slowdown following the rate hikes. Interest rate hikes target inflation, but a higher cost of borrowing hurts spending and investment, risking a negative impact on economic growth. Secondly, the crash is also fueled by a strong fear of stagflation, a condition of rising inflation coupled with a fierce, stagnant economy following multiple interest rate hikes. And not just stagflation, there are also fears of an economic recession. This after the Bank of England sent a stark warning. Announcing an interest rate hike, the bank warned that Britain's economy could plunge into a recession, with inflation spiking to a 40-year high of 10%. So the interest rate hikes, combined with fears of inflation going up and growth going down, dragged the markets sharply down.
Priyanshi, thanks very much for that update. But let's just look also at what the rupee closed at today. So it's near an all-time low of 77 rupees 5 paise to the dollar. The rupee weakened 55 paise today, closing at 76 rupees 90 paise. It went to 76 rupees 96 paise to the dollar in intraday trade. Experts say this was because of global concerns on growth and inflation hurting emerging market currencies. Meanwhile, L&T Infotech and Mindtree have announced a merger which will create India's 5th largest IT services provider by market cap. The combined entity will be known as LTI Mindtree. L&T Infotech Mindtree were both subsidiaries of the L&T Group. For now, the companies will continue to function independently. AM Nayak has said that the merger represents our continued commitment to grow the IT services business. Well, moving to the other big headline, and that's really about the report by WHO, which has estimated, based on a mathematical model, that India has the highest number of COVID deaths in the world, and also that the actual number of excess deaths in India was near 47 lakhs, which is about 9 times more than our official estimate. However, Indian doctors have reacted to it, saying this is preposterous and untenable. Also, the WHO report says that China, in fact, actually had less deaths than average. They've gone with China's official figure and said that China has recorded less deaths in the years of the COVID pandemic than they did in the years before. So, raising many, many questions about the mathematical modelling system the WHO was using.
India's leading pandemic officials have hit out at WHO's controversial report, according to which India's excess deaths in the first 2 years of the pandemic are over 47 lakh, which is almost 10 times the official figure. They say mathematical modelling should have been avoided.
India is just not uncomfortable because these are untenable figures. The way WHO has put us in tier 2 countries where no data is available, where modelling and estimates are done, whereas we as India has very robust CRS system, there is no harm in saying that 10 to 15% deaths or up to 20% deaths may have been missed.
Dr. Shashank Joshi of the Maharashtra Task Force called it speculative and arbitrary. What makes the report sting more is that it says China recorded 52,000 fewer deaths amid the COVID crisis as compared to a non-pandemic year, while India recorded the biggest excess in the world. The WHO says fewer deaths may have occurred during the pandemic if a country imposes lockdowns, enforces masking. This reduces death due to other causes, and Australia, Japan and New Zealand have also recorded fewer deaths than normal. Now on the WHO's methodology. If limited data was available, the WHO relied on extrapolation. They said there was no national level data provided for India. Only 17 out of 26 states provided data, and that too at irregular intervals. China, on the other hand, provided monthly province-level data and annual national-level data. According to the WHO, India is the most complex sub-national scenario data-wise. The WHO is sticking to its report. Acknowledging the controversy, it says the figures are an approximation of reality.
Numbers are sometimes controversial. We have to recognize that the estimates are an approximation of a reality.
Notably, WHO's number is broadly in line with 3 other estimates by the renowned Lancet Journal, The Economist and the Centre for Global Development. All 4 estimates say that India's actual COVID death toll may be between 8.5 and 11 times more than the actual count. The government says it has sought a response from the WHO, but it's yet to hear back. In New Delhi, Meher Pandey for NDTV.
Well, as we argue over data and how many deaths happened where, the simple fact doesn't change. For families who lost loved ones, the death of an individual, or in this case of both parents, is something that it will take a lifetime to recover from. Ask young Vanisha.
In English, Sanskrit, Science and Social Science Class 10 CBSE exams and 97 in Mathematics. An incredible achievement for any student, but a particularly proud yet poignant one for 17-year-old Vanisha, who lost her parents to COVID-19 exactly a year ago. A topper in class 11th, now with support from her maternal uncle and cousins, her target is to crack the IITs next year.
संभालने में ही काफ़ी टाइम लगा. उसके बाद फिर अपनी पढ़ाई को साथ साथ कंटिन्यू रख के जो भी जितने भी जैसे सर्कमस्टांसेस आते जा रहे थे उसको एक साथ रखना, उसको एक साथ संभालना काफ़ी डिफ़िकल्ट रहा.
A once bustling and cheerful household is picking up the pieces slowly, but still harassing her are calls from banks to recover loans.
इनके पिताजी ने मकान बना रहे थे, वो उसका हाउस लोन था उनका, क्योंकि बच्चे नाबालिग हैं। मैं अभी लीगल गार्जियन नहीं बना हूँ, सरकार ने मुझको इनका संरक्षक बनाया है।
विवान तो थोड़ा सीरियस हो गया तो उसको लगता है दीदी कर रही है तो मुझे भी पढ़ना है, तो उनको अब खेल में, स्पोर्ट्स में, अब समर वेकेशन में इनके समर कैंप्स हैं।
बच्चों की मानसिक स्थिति तो बदलती रही, बनती बिगड़ती रही।
Government has accepted the fact that Vanisha was orphaned because of COVID, but many kids are still struggling. Even we reported how the crematoriums recorded more deaths in a day than what the state or the district claimed. In Bhopal, with camera person Rizwan Khan and Anurag Dwari for NDTV.
In other news, Uma Sudhi spoke to that young woman who has become a widow in 24 hours, Sulthana, whose husband Nagaraju was brutally murdered by her brother and family. Sulthana speaks today of the horror and the fact that no one came forward to help them.
उस दिन रात को क्या हुआ था और कौन मारे, आपने खुद ही आइडेंटिफाई किया?
मैं ना मेरे हस्बैंड के साथ बाइक पे जा रही थी, सडनली 2 बाइक्स आए और मुझे नहीं मालूम था कि अभी मेरे भाई है बोल के मेरे हस्बैंड को धक्का दिए। मेरे हस्बैंड नीचे गिर गए और राड लेके वो लोग मारते गए। मेरे हस्बैंड को बचाने गए तो वो लोग मुझे ढकल दे रहे हैं। तो मैंने हेल्प पूछा, सभी से हेल्प पूछा, कोई भी हेल्प नहीं किया मेरा, और दूर ठहर के वीडियोस लिए सब लोग। 10-15 मिनट्स मेरे हस्बैंड को एक 30 या 35 टाइम्स राड से ओनली ब्रेन पे ही मारते गए कि जब लास्ट में मेरे हस्बैंड की पूरा सांस गई, मेरे हस्बैंड का जो सर में हाथ लगाए तो पूरा अंदर चले गए हाथ। तो मैं हेल्प पूछा, उतनी देर मैंने टाइम वेस्ट किया कि मैं खुद और कुछ करती। मेरे हस्बैंड को तो ये भी नहीं मालूम कि उनको धक्का दे दिए और वो नीचे ही गिर गए। हेलमेट भी था सर का कि मेरे भाई ने उनका कत्ल किया, उनको ये तक भी नहीं मालूम।
Here's the big Friday release, and as usual, the stars of Hollywood talking to NDTV.
You know, when these films entertain so many people, but when it comes to awards, you know, there's a more chance of a Power of the Dog to be nominated in the main category. Do you wish films like your film get more space in the awards category, since these are big entertainers that entertain the world?
I feel pretty easy about where they exist in culture. I feel very easy about the fact that I'm privileged enough to work in both spaces as well. And I think there are moments where both things align. Special effects. It depends. And I think, you know, smaller artistic firm maybe needs the critical and awards acclaim to have the life that these multiplex success stories do.